Welcome to the Iowa blog. This is episode 9 of The Man from Edom. This is a concept that is really unknown to most people. They're unfamiliar with what Yahweh spoke about this man from Edom because they have no way to apply it. They're just completely dumbfounded that God would speak of a man from Edom and have his prophet Yeshaya, Isaiah, say that he will save a great many. And yet we've read the passage in the 63rd chapter of Yeshaya, and it's exactly what he says. And clearly, Yeshaya is overjoyed with him. He even calls him Mizraah, the one cultivating the harvest. And he speaks of the fact that he and Yahweh looked for centuries, and they found no one that would convey Yahweh's message. No one that was willing to listen to God. And so this is an extraordinary event. And the reason that it can't or isn't understood by anyone is really pretty obvious. When Yeshaya says that the man is going to arrive out of Edom, that means he cannot be a Jew. And so the rabbis don't want somebody who is a goy coming to save many because they want to claim that for themselves. And so they're not going to talk about it. They'd prefer fellow Jews to die rather than to benefit from this man from Edom just because they can't be that individual, and the very goy they want to besmirch and demean and spit upon. Well, one of those goy is going to be that individual. And it turns out the goy that is that individual shares Yahweh's disdain for rabbis. And Christians, well, they don't want any part of it because, well, their guy didn't come from Edom. And so that they can't deal with it. How can there be a savior who is a man coming out of Edom when it obviously can't apply to their mythical misnomer? So everyone just passes it by. But where else do you find a statement in the midst of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms where it says that a individual man is going to come forth in the end and that he is going to save, Yasha is the word, rob a great many people? You don't. And so this is obviously exceedingly important. And because it is being conveyed to us through the great prophet Yeshaya, who speaks of the Choder and who speaks of the 7 spirits that he will be imbued with so that he can perform this task, well, it's something that is essential to the well-being of Yisrael, to the salvation of Yisrael. In fact, in our last program, the one we just completed on the 43rd episode of Katsir Harvest, Yahweh is emphatic, and he says that a great many are going to be saved in the end. At the conclusion of the time of Jacob's troubles, when all traces of religion and politics are expunged from the earth. Speaking at the same time, the same individual, the same process in this regard. So we're going to continue our pursuit of all we can understand here. And one of the things that I really am excited to do is I want to take you to the most exciting prophecy that I have ever read, that I've ever studied, that I've ever translated, that I've ever had the opportunity to comment upon. I hinted at it briefly in our last program, and that while Yahweh sang this magnificent song to Dode in the 89th Mizmor, well, Dode has his response. Not his response to Yahweh singing that song to him, because Dode had ended the first of his 3 lives when that song was written. It was written 4 years after Dode passed, at the time that the cornerstone of the house of Yahweh's name was being set. And so it was in year 3000, 996 BCE, or 968 BCE, when that song was sung, Dode passed away in the first of his 3 lives 4 years prior to that. But Dode in his prime was shown a prophecy that was so profoundly moving to him that he wrote a 35 verse. In fact, each of these verses in this Mizmor are a couplet. So guess how many statements Dode made about a single individual, the Choder. 300 years before Yashayahu would write about the Choder, Dode came up with his poem devoted entirely to the Choder. And it has exactly 70 statements. And I cannot wait to get you there because I just finished it. I think it was yesterday. And trying to get to the point where we can figure out how to be able to post it in a formatted manner on Facebook. At this point, I've put it into my feed, but it lost its formatting. So as soon as we are able to do that in a way that Facebook will accept, we're going to post it there as well. But I want to get there, and I want to take you through the same process that I went through at arriving there, because it's riveting, it's enlightening, it's affirming that Dode was so pleased with what we are doing, which is really essential to Dode. What we're doing for Dode is the single most important thing anyone has done for him apart from God himself, because he came to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. He endured the conditions necessary to honor God's promise as the Passover lamb and as the one who took our guilt into Sheol. And no one noticed. He had written about it prolifically. He had explained exactly what he was going to do. He even told us the exact timing to the day that he was going to do these things. And yet nobody noticed. And rather than them, even worse than them not noticing, the most popular religion in the world created a false prophet to beguile billions of people to rob Dode of everything he had achieved, everything he had done. And his own people created a religion also based on a false Messiah to deny Dode all of the accolades, all of the achievements that he had accomplished working with Yahweh. And so he can't even return. He can't be the king until this is resolved. And so here's this guy, a Nakar, an observant foreigner, a Choder, which is both the rod of divine justice as well as the secondary stem from the main branch that is Dode, that brings life to that fallen stump and the rootstock that was named after his father. And he discovers the truth. He's the first person in 3,000 years to recognize this, that Dode did these things. And he reestablishes Dode's correct position in the lives of his people. He reintroduces Yehudim to their Messiah, Yisrael to their king, the world to our Savior. And it's not that Jesus fellow. It's not Mr. Christ. Certainly as hell as an Allah. It's Dode David, the one whom Yahweh said is my chosen, the one whom Yahweh said, he's my son, I'm his father, the one that Yahweh anointed 3 times as the Messiah. And that's what we're in pursuit of. And we're headed to a mashal, a word picture, that where Dode is exclaiming his understanding of, his support of, his defense of this one individual among all humans who have ever lived that is responsible for restoring the king's rightful place in our lives. That's what we're headed for. So fair warning, as we make our approach to it, those who are not prepared either through the benefits of Chag Matzah, which David fulfilled, taking our guilt into Sheol to deposit it there, or the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, yours truly, on Teruah for the arrival of Yahweh with Dod, our Messiah, on Yom Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, which is 2033. The best you can hope for is to perish. By contrast, those who are present and standing as the mortal remnant of God's people at this moment of Yahweh's return with his beloved Son, well, all of these people will benefit from the refiner's ultimate fire. Their guilt will be purged, their souls will be cleansed. So, who can comprehend and endure this day when he arrives? And who will be present and standing, remaining beside his appearance? Because indeed, he will be similar to a refiner's fire and akin to an alkali detergent which cleanses. This is from Malachi, my messenger, 3:2. Well, God's not a detergent. So this is not speaking of Yahweh. And the refiner's fire is not coming from Dod either. He has to return after his people have been refined. And it's only then that God's people can stand in his presence. It's only then that they can comprehend and endure his return. So the person that they're actually talking about here is perhaps second only to Dod, the most commonly referenced person throughout prophecy. Yada, Dod's Bashar, human herald. Man from Edom, the Adam of Parah. And so the prophet this is the last prophet. This is 447 BCE, the last time Yahweh spoke through anyone as a prophet to his people. And he says, so who of you can comprehend and endure what's going to occur on this day? This day is on Teruah. Teruah is the day of purging. It is the final gleaning of God's people on the evening, be a Friday evening, the 23rd of September, 2033, such that on the following day, to the backdrop of a full solar eclipse, the 23rd of September, in year 6000 Yah, 2033, on a Shabbat, there will be the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. And Yahweh, just as he did 40 Obel 888 years earlier, with Elia also orchestrating the events, the ceremony, he's going to ignite the fire under the carcass of the bull. And the flames are going to shoot to the heavens. And he's going to release a torrent of water from the Temple Mount that are going to cleanse God's people, as if this mixture of ash and water, just as is the story of the Adamah, Parah, and Numbers 19, cleanses God's people and prepares them for the return. If you can comprehend and endure what's going to happen here. Because on the other side of those cleansing waters and that purging flame is the annihilation, the utter incineration, and the washing away of everyone who would come to harm God's people. And we read this in Yirmiyah 30. It says exactly this thing, where they'll all be washed away. There'll not be anyone who sought to control God's people politically or religiously, will all be gone. For God's people to be saved and to be saved from them. And so on this day, that is what's going to happen. It's the ashes of the Adam of Parah mixed with the water and the searing caused by the searing flames that Yahweh ignites and releases, that are going to benefit those, prepare those who are present, standing, remaining as part of that remnant of God's people, such that they're ready for the return of Yahweh and the Messiah Dod at the great homecoming and family reunion of Yom Kippurim 10 days later. Because indeed, it says he will be similar to a refiner's fire. Now, Eliah will be the one who is tasked with putting the lumber beneath me beyond the Temple Mount. To'alah will be put there too to remind us precisely of the great sacrifice that Dod had made on Passover, because he mentioned the same bloody red grub. And it will be there as a reminder to God's people that these events are related. And then after my physical body is bludgeoned by the adversary, just as Dod's was bludgeoned by the ultimate beast of imperial Rome, became the beast of the Roman Catholic Church. Politics and religion coming against the Passover lamb. The same thing will be true with the corporeal manifestation of Satan. And the fire that Yahweh ignites under what is left of me after this bludgeoning is that refiner's fire that's going to purify his people. And the alkali is going to come from the ashes and mixed with the water, and it's going to cleanse. That's what God is talking about here. He wants you to comprehend that. Now, mind you, this is Malachi 3:2. This is the very book that speaks about the other fellow that's returning, who is going to orchestrate this, one with experience orchestrating exactly what is going to transpire in 2033. The ingredients will be fire, water, and ash as Yahweh ignites the flames and releases the torrent stored beneath the mount. The Malach Bareth, this messenger of the covenant, which is the previous statement, speaking precisely of what I'm doing for you as the messenger of the Bereth covenant, will have given his Bashar body as a herald of purification on the day of the herald, Yom Teruah. And Eliah will serve as the master of ceremonies. And it's all explained in Numbers 19 and 1 Kings 18. It's the same set of circumstances. It's just that it will be so much grander, so much more magnificent when performed actually on the Temple Mount, with Yahweh again igniting that fire. But this time, it's going to have such a profound effect, not only his people, but also those who came to harm them. It is the transition from the time of Jacob's troubles to the time we return to the Garden of Eden. This will be the greatest show on earth. And that's why the lost prophet, Malachi, my messenger, spoke of it. And we also come to have a better understanding of this by reading the Numbers 5 account of the adulterous woman who is purified so that she is prepared for her groom in the same way by these ashes and this water that Yahweh is going to release. And the groom, that's the returning king, Dod. From the days of your ancestors, this reads, you have turned away from my clearly communicated written prescriptions from living, choke ani, my inscribed recommendations and prescriptions, thoughts regarding the allocation of the share of what we have agreed. You have not observed them. Come, choose to return to me, and I will choose to return to you, and I will restore you, promises Yahweh of the spiritual implements, Shabbat. Malachi 3:7. How profound. God's saying, there's something about you that has been consistent, Israel, since the very beginning. Really, it goes all the way back to Abraham and Ishak and Jacob and his 12 sons that became the children of Israel. And their behavior was horrible. And then they end up in Mitzrayim and are enslaved there. And They're disgusting. And Yahweh says, I'm going to go get them. And it goes in with Moshe to retrieve them. And they're obnoxious all the entire time. They're religious. They're grumbling. They're irascible. They're never grateful. And he even told God, go away and shut up. We don't ever want to see you or hear from you again. God shared his Torah with them, and nah. It's true. And you parade the Torah around like it's a whore, and then you recite from your Talmud, which is you shouting over God. So God is saying, from the days of your ancestors, Yisrael, Jews, you've turned away from Yahweh's clearly communicated, written prescriptions for living. Chok is something which is inscribed, not something that's oral. God gave you the prescriptions for living, and you renounced them. You turned away from them. And so he says, you just flat out haven't observed them. Lo Shamar. And therefore, the only opportunity that is left, and there isn't much time left, is to shub. And this is shub for shub. This is you shub, Yahweh shubs. You don't shub, no shub from Yahweh. No shub for you. Choose to shub. To return to me. Change. What you're doing is terrible. You've been religious. You've been political. You're still religious and political. You won't even say my name. You don't observe my Moed Mikre as I outlined them to you. You pay no attention to Chag Matzah, or Bakodim, or Shabua. You renamed Teruah. You think that Kippurim is a day of agony rather than reconciliation. You twirl chickens over your head. You got no clue what Sukkah represents, that it's a time to come together and camp out in a religious-free Eden. No clue. And so the only opportunity you have, Israel, is to change, to come back to Yahweh. That's why I've written these 35 books that you see behind me. It's why I've done these 300 Yahweh blog episodes. That's why I turn on the lights, look into the camera, and say, please, Israel, change. What you're doing is wrong. That's why I go into social media and plead with those who actually are influential in talking to the children of Israel, Israelites, Jews. They're saying, until you change, until you realize that the IDF can't protect you for what's coming, until you realize that your politicians, I don't care if you're liberal or conservative, right wing, left wing, they've all let you down. And it's only going to get worse. Do you see Netanyahu in the visiting guest torture chair in the Oval Office when Trump dumped that load of crap on him that he was now going to spur of the moment negotiate with Iran over their nuclear program? Israel's in an untenable position. And of course, the rabbis have been wrong from the beginning. God hates religion, and none more than Judaism. So change. Stop being religious. Stop being political. Come back to Yahweh. And if you do that, and this was written in the imperative, which means it's second person volition, if you do that, then Yahweh says in the cohortative, which is first person volition, I will choose to return to you and I will restore you. Shub for shub. Choose to return to me and I will choose to return to you. But guess who has to be the first to act? Yahweh is not coming to your aid until you cut it with the nonsense. You stop being religious. You stop being political. You stop lying about who he is, you stop erasing his name, you stop denying what his son has achieved for you, you start appreciating that there's 5 conditions to the covenant, and to receive the 5 benefits, you have to participate in the Moed Mikre in the way that Yahweh intended. And you have to recognize that Dod fulfilled them. Not a lot to ask, considering the benefits, especially. God is just asking you to spend some quality time with him. And to do that, you can't be religious, you can't be political. Think it through. Not only do you witness this, what happened? Why was, of all the people on earth, why did Yahweh reach out to a Babylonian? Abram, who was a Babylonian. So was Sarah. Ur of the Chaldeans, they were from Babylon. Why did Yahweh choose him? What is the thing that made Abraham available to Yahweh to establish the covenant? Actually, it was just the narrative of the covenant. The covenant was established with Dod. He had walked away from Babel, from this integration of religion and politics. He had disassociated himself from Babylon, which is what made him available. He walked away from the religious and political establishment of Babylon. Think of the next really, really important person in this story. Who would that be? Moshe. Yeah, Moshe. Remember him? He was the guy that grew up in Pharaoh's household. Oh, yeah, man. He would have been enveloped in the religion and the politics of Mitzrayim. And what did he do? He realized how horrible it was. He risked his very life, showing character, to stand between an implement of torture, a taskmaster, a means of control over the Hebrews. He intervened to protect the Hebrew against the taskmaster, and actually killed the taskmaster in the process. That's how difficult it was to restrain him. And he hightailed out of town, because when he next encountered the Hebrews that he had saved, they mocked him. They rebuked him, just as they rebuked the God that tried to save them. Let that sink in. And so Moshe was out there in Arabia tending sheep, having left all of that religion and all of that politics behind, despising it. That's what made Moshe available. He was not religious, he was not political, and he knew that those things were harmful, which is what made him the right choice, and the only one who was the right choice. What was the difference between Dod and the other sons of Yishai? They were all there with dad, doing their thing. What's the condition of the covenant? Walk away from your father's home. What had Dod done? He was out there in Bethlehem tending sheep. You see the trend? See the picture here? When Yahweh reached out to me, I had come to realize that Christianity, which I was a Christian in my early days, I'm not embarrassed to say it, because knowing the religion gives me the ability to expose and condemn the religion. I could not have written Christianity without knowing the religion. I couldn't have even done the proper job of writing goddamn religion, exposing and condemning Islam, without knowing it. But I had left it. I had come to realize that there were so many lies in the Christian New Testament, so many contradictions, so many impossibilities, that it couldn't be true. And I had been very political. And prior to the time that Yahweh reached out to me, I had come to know politicians personally, some of the highest ranking politicians in the country. And I realized they were all egomaniacs. They weren't worth anyone's respect. And I studied the history of my country, and it was hideous. And so I had done the same thing. I had disassociated myself from religion and politics before Yahweh was able to reach out to me, introduce himself, and say, let's go do this together. The same thing applies to you if you're a Yisraelite. If you're a Yahud, you need to disassociate yourself from religion and politics. That's the difficulty that I have in social media and trying to engage Jews living in Israel to carry Yahweh's message to Israelites, is that most all of them are overtly political. I mean, oh God, talk about a culture that is political. Sheesh. And I mean, rabid about it. And even those that aren't Haredim and ultra-Orthodox still love the religious traditions of Judaism. And they've never been able to distinguish the difference between being Jewish and the religion of Judaism. One's an ethnicity, the other's a religion. God loves one, hates the other. So choose to return to me, and I will choose to return to you. It is in that order for a reason. You can trust the fact that God knows what he's talking about and that he will do what he said. If you do not change and choose to return to him, he is not going to choose to return to you. It will not happen the other way. And because rabbis have dug in as opposed to change, it most certainly will never happen to them. Many Yehudim will, but only after a 3,480 year intermission for bad behavior. They have been slow in learning the lesson that Elia taught 40 Obel 888 years ago. As simple and wonderful as all of this sounds, let's not skim over the parameters, though, of this deal. Individually, this is the difference between life and death. But galactically, it is more akin to the survival of our planet or its destruction. Do you realize that? The survival of Israel or its extinction. Should Elia and Yada, the two final witnesses, fail, there would be no surviving remnant and no homecoming. And without both, there is no reason to return or restore the planets that has now been ravaged by war and has sought to obliterate life itself. God's not coming back. If we fail, he's not coming back. And the planet will destroy itself. No, not the planet. The people on the planet will destroy themselves. That's what's at stake. This begins, and you may not like the idea of having your fate, the very fate of the planet, in the hands of a human. But this is the way that God has chosen to save the planet and to save the people on it. Not all of them. Those who choose to be with him, those who change and return to him. And if you can't grasp that, then you don't understand how Yahweh works, because Yahweh always chooses to work through people, and he chooses a person with whom he thinks he can be effective in communicating, and he achieves his goals through that individual. Well, this begins by addressing both witnesses, but in particular, Elia, who is speaking to his countrymen. Then, as the passage moves on, God transitions to a focus on Yada and the Kashab, the comprehensive messenger who, after listening to Yahweh, writes a book systematically conveying the revelations of the previous prophets, doing so methodically, word for word. Then at that time, Those who respect and profoundly value Yahweh, they will convey the word, speaking as an individual to his countrymen. And Yahweh will listen attentively, and accepting what he hears is true, he will respond by assisting this kashab, comprehensive messenger. He will receive the entire communication, hear everything which is said, and will regard it favorably, acting to enable its dissemination because of its accuracy. And he will continue to listen, such that a book of remembrance systematically conveying a word-by-word recollection of the previous communication, a zakaron, one of my wife's favorite words. It means a memorable man. So this is a remembrance, systematically conveying a word-for-word recollection of the previous communication by a memorable man. Zakar means both man and to remember. Thus, memorable man. And Zakaron are all things associated with this memorable man, which would be these books that are behind me. And now the incorporation of all of the knowledge and understanding of those books within me, so that I can speak to you as part of these live streams during the Yahweh blog. And he says, this will all be written before his appearance for those who respect and admire Yahweh and who consider, account for, and have determined the merit of his name. You see that? You can read that, right? What does that say? Yada, Yahweh. To know, to respect, to acknowledge Yahweh's name. All before he arrives. Can you please tell me, Israel? You're illiterate, right? Who else has written a series of books? 35 of them. Books are long, filled with translations of Yahweh's testimony. Here, amplified translations of Yahweh's testimony throughout. Explanations of what God said. Insights derived from what God conveyed. Word for word, everything that I have done has each and every Hebrew word within the parenthetical, so that you can look it up and validate it, so you know from what the translation was derived. Every word, as revealed in the oldest extant text, the Dead Sea Scrolls. So what does this say? Then at that time, those who respect and profoundly value Yahweh, until you change, Israel, and go from never saying his name and writing G-D or Hashem or Adonai, and you do what I have done, and you make Yahweh's name the single most important part of your nature, that you go from erasing it to embracing it. When you change and you do that, then you will show that you actually have respect and profoundly value Yahweh. But until you go from erasing it to embracing it, you're on the outside looking in. And this situation, on the outside, means your soul will perish. And if you are like the rabbis and are working against those who want to stop erasing and start embracing Yahweh's name, you're off to Sheol. Not much time left. So at this time, those who respect and who profoundly value Yahweh. Do you know in Israel how many people profoundly value Yahweh right now? You know what we're up against? Getting Jews to change and to value Yahweh's name. You know why Yahweh had to look over the course of 3,000 years and he couldn't find a single Jew willing to value his name? This is a serious problem, and it must change. And at that time, it will change, because there will be some who respect and profoundly value Yahweh's name. And inside of Israel, two in particular, Yada and Elia. What does Elia need? You call him Elijah, bull. He's Elia. God is Yahweh. They will convey the word, speaking to his countrymen. And Yahweh will listen attentively, and accepting what he hears is true. God is endorsing this message. He will respond by assisting the Kasab, the comprehensive messenger. When you look at books like this, and they're 825 pages, and this is only on 2 of the 7 Moed Mikre. You know, you look at this, Dode Beloved, it's volume 3, and probably covers 6, 7, 8 maybe of Dode's Mizmor songs. That's about as comprehensive, well, in fact, not about, it's more comprehensive than anybody's ever been. The first time ever, I invented a different way of rendering a translation. It's called an amplified translation. I invented the process, the form of it, where in bold you'll read the essence of what God communicated, and then you will find the Hebrew word, every one word for word, emblazoned within the parenthetical, so that you come to know the terms that Yahweh used, can relate to them, can look them up and verify them, and even can expand and grow based upon what you learn. And then I will add amplification. For example, he will respond by assisting the Kashab, comprehensive messenger. He will receive the entire message, hearing everything which is said, and he will regard it favorably, acting to enable its dissemination because of its accuracy. That's the amplification. Never existed before. God predicted it would. He foretold that this would occur. And he says he will continue to listen, such that this book of remembrance, everything under the same brand, all one extension of this book of remembrance. Why? Because everything in these books was rendered from prior prophets. So this book of remembrance, this book scribed, translated, explained by the Zakaron, the memorable man that Yahweh was addressing at this point. Also that you would have the knowledge and the understanding, not only to change, but to change in such a way that Yahweh is in a position where he can restore you and restore the relationship with you. And everything will be written. And for the first 24 years we were together, everything was written. And then Yahweh one morning woke me up. He says, time for us to talk. And he explained that, he says, you know, you've written a lot of books. Writing another book, the incremental benefit of one more book isn't going to change much. So it's time to stop spending all of your time translating and commenting on my testimony, to looking my people in the eye, to talking directly to them. We're going to transition from the written word to the spoken word. And as you can tell, No matter how compelling, how articulately I try to write, how accurately, how much amplification, how much detail, word for word, we get into God's testimony, the spoken word is more powerful, more compelling. We have a better chance of breaking through that stubborn head of God's people with the spoken word than with the passiveness of the written word. And it's only a matter of time for one of these programs to go what they call viral. And so that you all are introduced to it. So you all know that you have this opportunity. And this is all going to finally resonate with you before Yahweh's appearance. And it's on behalf of those who will come for the first time in 3,000 years to develop a respect and admiration for Yahweh, and who consider and have determined the merit of Yahweh's name. If you aren't willing to acknowledge the merit of Yahweh's name, you will have no part in his future for his people. You will not enter the Garden of Eden on Sukkah. You won't even be here to witness it or to witness the restoration of planet Earth. You won't survive Yahweh's return if you're not willing to develop a genuine appreciation for Yahweh and his Shem. May I also remind you, Yisrael, that 3,000 years transpired, 2,500 of them without a single prophet, where no one spoke Yahweh's name. You look it up and you were told that it couldn't be spoken, that no one knew how to speak it, that out of great respect for it, that it wouldn't be spoken. Yahweh says this negation of his name, this erasing of his name is unforgivable as a sin. So no, that's not true. It was exceedingly easy to figure out how to pronounce it. But rather than just say it's exceedingly easy because we're going to pronounce Yahweh's name as he instructed us, since he told us in his Torah that it was based upon the verb haya, and haya tells you how to pronounce 3 of the 4 letters in Yahweh's name, haya. He told us how to do it in a book called the Torah. Where do you think you get the O sound in Torah, if not from the Wa, the only other letter? So immediately I knew how to pronounce his name. But rather than accept that, I said, this is so important. I'm going to spend weeks and I'm going to look at every single Hebrew word with a yod, a wa, and a hey in it. And I'm going to examine how all of those words are pronounced, because it's obvious that the yod, the wa, and the hey are all vowels. They're all open mouth sounds. And that 5 of the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet were vowels. But it's one thing to know that. It's another thing to prove it. And I wrote extensively about my study over those weeks. And so I was not only the only person to reveal the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name after 2,500 years, and to do as this says, write a series of books, word for word, that Yahweh himself calls accurate, showing a great respect and reverence for Yahweh's name. But I would be the first to prove that Yahweh was accurate, and also explain how important it is to stop erasing it and to start embracing it. There is no one who is doing this, which means that the one who is doing it is the one that Yahweh was talking about. It isn't difficult for you to figure that out. You're smart people. You have an average IQ of 115. Use it. as if your nation and your individual souls and the souls of your parents and your children and your spouses and your associates all depend on it, because they all do. Since the book being described of written recollections from the previous prophets, that is written prior to Yahweh's arrival to reintroduce his people to the merits of God's Shem, Yada Yahweh is the only option. It's the lone candidate that exists to fulfill this prophecy. That being true, what are you going to do about it? Why are you going to continue to be in denial? Now, while he is a mentor and an inspiration, Yahweh is affirming that there will be another witness in the end. I won't be alone. I'm not alone even now, because I have the seven spirits working through me. I have Yahweh encouraging me every day, every moment that we work together. And when Yahweh says, I want to start all over in our outreach to my people, and we're going to have an entirely new team, he brought a entirely new team together. One of those individuals is sitting to my right, pinch hitting for my wife, who's in the midst of a meeting. Yeah, we have a team. Yahweh brought the team. In fact, it wasn't 15 minutes after Yahweh says, "Oh, by the way, we're going to restaff the team. We got a lot to accomplish." And I want to tell you, young man, there is no opportunity for another chance. We're going to be successful. Got a lot riding on this, so I'm going to give you a team of people that you can rely upon. And he did. But soon I will have a partner. I mean, a full partner. And that will be Elia. As a result, they will be mine. Promises Yahweh, the vast array of spiritual implements. Approaching that day when, to show the way to receive the benefits of the relationship, I will engage, acting in a demonstrable way to prepare my most treasured possession, someone whom I value and hold especially dear. During the time that Elia and I are on the Temple Mount, cleansed of all of the Islamic and other religious rubbish, and speaking primarily to Israelites, but really to the whole world that will be tuned in to what we have to say, Yahweh's going to put on a show. The show is not just at the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, which will be the greatest show on earth, but every day we're there, God's going to put on a show. You're going to see banners in the sky of excerpts from these books. You're going to see the Ark of the Covenant. You're going to see the tablets engraved in stone. You're going to see Yahweh involved. I'm even heard Yahweh's voice during the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah speak to his people, asking them to come home. So Yahweh says, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to engage. I'm going to act. I'm going to do things in a demonstrable way to prepare my most treasured possession, someone I value and hold especially dear, Yisrael, and the most beloved of all Yisrael, Dod. And so I will protect and I will spare them. You know, see, the two witnesses, Elia and Yada, we're going to be attacked every moment of every day. But Yahweh is going to be our protection. He will deliver us from harm. While heaping favor upon them, he says, recognizing the scope of the challenge that is before them. Yeah, boy, it's a tough audience. Similar to the way an individual favors and spares, protects, and assuring the safety of while empathizing with his son who works with him. Who does Yahweh call his son? Dod. Who else does he call his son? He refers to the children of Israel as his children. But why don't you find somebody else who by name Yahweh says, he is my son, I am his father? How much time do you need? Or can I just save you the trouble? Dod alone. What is Yahweh's favorite reference to Dod? Because it's not Messiah, not by a long shot. Not even Son of God, which he calls him. Not Zeroah, which is probably his most important title, sacrificial lamb. It isn't king, which is the title upon which he will wear when he returns. It isn't branch, which is so vital to this understanding that he's the branch of the tree of lives. I'm the stem out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that leads to the tree of lives. What is it? Chosen one he uses, but not repetitively. Firstborn, Bakor, yeah, he uses. What is the number one most repeated title, descriptive phrase that Yahweh uses pursuant to Dod? I just gave you the answer. The one who works with me. My co-worker. My Ebed. This is Abed. Ebed, written the same way in the Hebrew. Son who works with me. Only one person in all of human history bears those two distinctions. And he is the one who has offered his Bashar body and his Nefesh soul to save Yisrael, extending the lives of the covenant family and perfecting God's people so we're prepared for God's return and living in his presence. All of this is Dod. He is the one. And it's repeated right here in Malachi 3:17. So the promise Yahweh has made to restore the fortunes of his people is right here. He's going to do so by providing the benefits of the covenant relationship through the fulfillment of the Moed Mikre. Verse 3, already fulfilled. Guess who? Very Son of God. God's co-worker, the one that he worked through to achieve the benefits of the covenant, all of them. Pisak Matzim Bakorim. And it is the next harvest that is a Bakorim harvest, and that is the job that Yada is coordinating. And it will commence at the opening of the time of Yaakov's troubles, Shabuah, May 22nd, 2026. 10 years later, it is Yahweh enabling his two witnesses, Elia and Yada, not only to orchestrate the Teruah harvest, the day of the herald, but to work as a team with Yahweh to accomplish the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah in such a way that God's people, the remnant, are prepared for his return. And it is Dod with whom he will be returning. That's the story. So this known in the first sentence of the second paragraph, the focus seems to be on these two witnesses, such that they are able to complete this very challenging mission because of the difficulty of the audience. Yahweh himself, speaking directly to his people, did not resonate with them. He could not get through their thick heads. Yahweh himself, speaking directly to his people, appearing as fire in their presence, and with a booming voice, he couldn't get through to his people. And now he's got two guys out there that he's asked to do what the Israelites would not accept. when God was in their presence, standing there beside Moshe. Tough challenge, huh? Not many people want to volunteer for it when they know that that is the challenge, that God himself did not prevail when he himself was visible to and heard by the children of Israel. He did not prevail with them. And now Yahweh has chosen two men through whom he's going to speak to achieve this desired result. That's a hell of a challenge, isn't it? Would you want it? Would you want that responsibility? Well, of course, it's one of the reasons Yahweh was bringing Elia back. There was nobody better at confronting the politics and the religion of his people than Elia. That was the whole purpose of the grand event that Elia orchestrated against the King Ahab and against the prophets of Baal and Asherah. So that's why he's coming back. And plus the fact that when it comes to masters of ceremony over the roasting of a bull, he's practiced. He's really good at it. That's why he's coming back. As for that other fellow, well, he's been working with him for 24 years. He may have been slow at the upstart, but he's gaining momentum. He's now got the benefit of these 35 books that we've worked collaboratively on. And now the confidence and the knowledge and understanding to speak directly to you. It is a tough job, but I'm not one that's going to give up. I'm going to continue this fight until we prevail, and we will prevail. Not with all of you, but with the best of you. Not with many of you, but with some of you. Yahweh's commitment here is being equated to the favoritism he has shown to his beloved son. Oh, that's quite a thought, isn't it? He said that this is going to be very much like the love one would have for a son. Therefore, he is equating those who embrace the conditions of the covenant, who accept his son, who want to become part of his family, the same way that he embraces Dod. Dod is the most beloved, the chosen one, and we can be most beloved and chosen of Yahweh by revering his name, by changing and allowing him to restore us, by listening to and accepting the message of the witnesses. You too can be as Dod is. That's the beauty of it. Yes, the love that Yahweh has for his beloved son Dod is the greatest love story in the history of humanity, particularly with God. This is appropriate because they are committed to serving the interests, the two witnesses, of the returning king. Yada is Dod's herald. And Dod is shown working through and with them. Dod wrote this entire Mizmor, this word picture, specifically on the job that I would do, preparing you to receive Elia and to benefit from all God is offering. Ultimately, it really is this simple. So return. Shub. Then come back. Be restored. And you will see the distinction and understand the difference between the one who is right as opposed to those who are wrong. Understanding the dissimilarity of the one who works with God in contrast to the way of those who do not serve him. Malachi, my messenger. Malachi 3:18. This will be our last passage. I'll share an insight or two, and we'll return to this in our next program. So once again, it is return. So then just return. Change. Be restored. What do you got to lose? You've been doing it one way, being religious and political, for 3,000 years, and what's it gotten you? And you're about to be attacked on all sides and in between. The whole world is turned against you. What do you got to lose to give God a chance? Don't you think he's going to do as he's promised? You turn to him and he's going to turn to you? Change and he will change you? So return. And then you will see cause, consequence. You make the decision to return to Yahweh, to change and accept him, embrace him. And then you're going to see. You will then understand the distinction between, the difference between. This is conveyed by one of my very favorite Hebrew words, be'en. It means to understand by making the connections necessary to comprehend. We make this transition from knowing, which is infinitely better than believing, to understanding by making connections to find the common denominator between things. I had a numbskull Christian tell me that I shouldn't be ridiculing the boss man because that the boss man was the anointed from God. Yeah, they actually believe that Trump is their Messiah, and that anyone who would infringe on the great, perfect, precise, accurate work of the boss man who is anointed by God will be, condemned by him. And he says, I believe. Running back says, well, yeah, I get it. You believe. And I get it. You're political and religious. The fact is, I know. And I understand that you're wrong. And if you change and you're willing to give Yahweh a chance, if you embrace him, if you respect him, then you'll see the difference. And how profound it is to go from believing to knowing. Knowing is so much more powerful than believing. All belief is a substitute for knowing. And if you know, there's no reason to believe. And then you can use be'en to go beyond yada, because be'en speaks of making those connections to understand. And understanding is the most powerful force in the universe. So return, and you will see the distinction. You will understand the difference between the one who is right, Sadak, and the ones who are wrong. Now, the one who is right is one. And at this time, I am Yahweh's designee. And the ones who are wrong are many. Russia. They're religious. They're in rebellion. They're guilty. And he says, be'en again, you will understand the dissimilarity concerning the one who works with God. That is what we have done for the past 25 years. It is what we're going to do for the next year. It's what we're going to do when we come back as one of the two witnesses. And it's what we're going to do forevermore, because Yahweh wants us to work with him, and there'll be jobs to do throughout eternity. And the one thing we want to be more than anything else is right about God. And second onto that, we want to work with God. When you've got those two things going, life is not only everlasting, it is not only happily ever after. You get to not only explore the universe, but change it, transform it. You become like God. As he said of his son, Elyon, godlike in his presence, brilliant, powerful, liberated, enlightened, emancipated, empowered, enriched, enabled. Yahweh wants to lift us up and to make us more like him. And you will understand the similarity concerning the ones who works with God in contrast to those who do not serve with him. Malachi 3:18. I want you to see this distinction. I want you to appreciate the difference between believing and knowing, and the power, the enrichment, the enablement that you gain by going from knowing to understanding. And that is the very thing that gives me the confidence to once, sometimes twice, even occasionally 3 times a day, to turn on these lights, light up this mic, turn on the camera, look you in the eye, and speak directly to you. Please listen. Well, thank you. This has been a special episode of the Iowa blog, 9th edition of our story of the man from Edom who saves many. And I am Yada. Thank you again for listening.